Hey everyone, this is Brian here from Massey's Main Entertainment, and we're back with our series called Was This Album Really That Awful, or Was This Album Really That Good? And since I'm getting currently 3 to 7 inches of snow today in
Whoa.
almost April, it's really ironic that we're actually going to focus on the awful today. I'm joined today by my buddies Rich Strickler. Say hi.
Brian,
Doc.
Doc.
Doc
Hey,
back from
everybody.
vacation. He's
Yes,
got a
sir.
big smile on his face. I'm going to put a QR code for Rich's channel up on the screen so you can check that out. Rich, Doc, and I are part of the committee also for the Authentic Hall of Fame series that it's over on Rich's channel. So be sure to check that out. And Rich and I participate in a Friday CD exchange with Glenn Kellaway of The Basement, Randy Nelson, and the Canadian stud muffin, Larry Graves. So be sure to check out videos there as well. So today, guys, we're going to be focusing on an album that was a huge seller, and at least in rock and roll journals that I've noticed, a critical success as well. But now when you mention it, it's almost like it was a punchline to an era of music that died the moment Nevermind was released in 1991. And I'm talking about Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, an album that was released in early fall of 1989 on Elektra Records and their fifth studio album. The album managed to top the Billboard charts and would become the band's most commercially successful album, selling more than 7 million copies. Dr. Feelgood and Kickstart My Heart were nominated for Grammy nominations for songs in 90 and 91, but lost both times to Living Color. But they won the Best Rock Metal Album at the American Music Awards in 1991. So, as always, I will take the last word on this. And Doc, our resident hard rocker, you get to take lead this week on this. Was this album really that awful, Doc? What do you think?
Well, here we are, right? It's Motley Crue kicking off, and I'll just say this on everything that you talked about there, Brian. And when you hear Dr. Feelgood from Motley Crue at this time, this is 89 here, this doesn't sound like Motley Crue that you heard before. This is not the heavy, the harder rock that they were doing. This is the polished, heavy, hard rock that's coming out here on Dr. Feelgood. And there's no getting around the fact that this looks like it's a polished album. This has Bob Rock written all over it because it is Bob Rock, Metallica, everything else that goes on with him and stuff like this. Pretty high-end producer for that type of stuff. Knows exactly what he's doing. It's a heavy riff guitar album. It's listen, the guys can play. You know, Mick can play. Tommy's a great drummer. And I'll say this after listening to this a few times there, maybe I didn't give Vince enough credit on his vocals at some point in his career because he's actually pretty solid in this thing all the way through. I've liked the album. I owned this album when it came out. This was a staple for a few years, definitely on the overplay, play again. And this is not lyrically a strong album. This is like, sexually laden, like Spinal Tap kind of lyrics throughout the whole thing here. So this is not, you're not listening to this for, some deep motivational type of topics. This is just right at you, heavy. Like I said, strong guitars, strong bass, strong drums. Like I said, pretty good lyrically sounds from Vince. Maybe not the lyrics themselves, but and it's got different elements inside the album itself too, right? Like horns pop up on like Rattlesnake Shake and stuff like this, and you got different kind of vibes to it. And there's good breakdowns, and they have their power ballads on here as well, which are actually pretty strong power ballads when you get right down to it. Without You and Don't Go Away Mad are both pretty good tunes in my eyes. Is the album really that bad after X amount of years here that we're talking? Not in my eyes, man. I think this is a listen. I think there's they're not fantastic songs all the way through, but they're you can listen to it. You can listen to this all the way through and still not be that upset about listening to it all the way through. In my eyes, Kickstart My Heart is still a straight out your rock tune, I think. And like I said, Don't Go Away Mad. Get the name of the songs right. Sticky Sweet and She Goes Down. I mean, there's nothing left to the imagination on some of these tunes about what's going on here, right? So. But Time for Change is a different kind of feel for them as well too at the end of the album. So I think Feelgood's still a good listen, man, if you want my opinion. Like I said, pretty polished, but I like the polished sound of the Motley Crue at this time, and I still like it now, to be honest with you. I'm going 8 out of 10 on this one, man, and it's sticking with me.
So what's your score, you think?
8. I'm going 8 out of 10, man.
8 out of 10. Okay. Not bad.
Oh yeah.
Rich, you got a retort to that?
Well, Doc and I usually agree on
Yeah, we do.
90% of the stuff, but this is that slice of the pie that just that doesn't work for me. I think this era of music is probably the most divisive as far as I absolutely detest hair metal, heavy metal, hard rock in this era. I say, and this is no exception. I mean, this is just, I thank God every day that I wasn't a teenager in the late 80s. I was already 30 years old at this time, had a lot of behind me. This stuff didn't affect me whatsoever. When I would see it pop up on MTV, I would just change the channel, wait for a different tune, whatever. I just hate the rebelliousness, the debauchery, the whatever they were throwing at you, the unhappiness of, teenage angst. It was handled differently in this era than it was with, let's say, The Who or even the Kinks or something. They did different things with their music. That stuff was more melodic in the old days. This was just loud, abrasive, noisy stuff that I just couldn't process. So it's going to be a negative review for me all the way through. I don't like any of the songs on the album, all 11 of them. Pretty generic hair metal schlock, very formulaic fodder, I would say. The lyrics, if they're not sexual lyrics, they're kind of dumb and silly lyrics. I don't understand the album sales and the concert sold out. If you're young, I guess you have a different perspective. But for me, then and now, I just can't buy into this kind of music. I think it was a wasted era of music. Kickstart My Heart, which was nominated for a Grammy and got all these. It has 473 million views on Spotify. It's the biggest viewing song on this album, and I just don't get it. A lot of overdose references, sexual innuendo, which I usually get into, but with these guys, it doesn't work for me. The ballads are average at best. Without You, Don't Go Away Mad. The Sticky Sweet song is like an inferior attempt at Def Leppard. It's not good. She Goes Down, more sexual innuendo. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'll give this album, and I think it's a fair assessment, a 4.5 for me.
Wow. Woo. All right. Well, okay. I'm gonna try to meet somewhere in the middle here.
As you should.
This album was very much of the time. It's highly shaped around the whole hair band scene at the late 80s, the Cinderellas, the Bon Jovis, the Poisons, all that stuff there. And this album felt a little bit more glam rock than your typical heavy metal hard rock band would do. There was a lot of drinking going on with them at this particular time, and I know that they were hanging out with Aerosmith, which is probably not a great role model for them in general. There was some shining parts of this album that I thought were okay, like Kickstart My Heart. I do like the song. I particularly like the bridge of the song where it breaks down really well and then kind of surges back again. I think maybe I got jilted a little bit because I saw these guys in concert about maybe 6 years ago, and Alice Cooper opened up for them, and Alice Cooper was just phenomenal. And I had wrote down the 14 songs that I thought Motley Crue would play. And exactly those 14 songs is all they played. They did not play an encore. They didn't do anything. It was essentially walk up there, do your greatest hits, and walk off the stage. So that kind of jilted me a little bit. The album I do appreciate the fact that a lot of the extra musicianship on the album. Jack Blades played on this album. Bryan Adams was on this album. Steven Tyler, Robin Zander, those guys all played like extra instruments on there. I guess if I want to be fair and say that if the intent of the album is to entertain versus, creating a piece of musical art, then it is, for the time, it succeeded. So I'm willing to give this one a 7.0. Just because I think there's enough of it that kind of gives me some nostalgic feelings of the late 1980s and that particular type of music. But it's not something I'll revisit unless I'm forced almost to revisit it again. It's just not that type of music for me. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, Doc, I know you feel like you're kind of out on the island with your 8 there, but
no, no, it's just you can hang around the party a little longer, but Rich is not staying for dessert, so that's what's going to happen at the party.
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good album to do to, illustrate our personal taste in music. It really is.
Yeah.
Doc's going to veer towards the heavy stuff, and this is heavy, but it's not quality heavy in my book. But it still has those essential things that he likes, like the heavy riffs. The drumming is fantastic on here. The vocals are not horrible, but they're just not singing about things that I'm interested in. I mean, that's why I give it the low grade. And like I said, I think the age at the time has a lot to do with it. I'm 30. You guys are, 18, 19?
Yeah.
In that ballpark.
Yeah,
right
somewhere
there.
in there. Yeah, we were 19. Yeah.
So, and it was all over MT. It was a big thing. You want to hang out with your friends, Motley Crue. Hey, they're cool, man. They're living on the edge. I can get all that, but
right.
It's just one of them things. It's the era more than anything that shaped my feelings on this one.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I guess the consensus is the doctor may feel good, but maybe just kind of lukewarm good. I mean, just, just kind of that way. So I really appreciate you guys joining me on this particular conversation. We're doing this in tandem with the Guns N' Roses here. So we'll also be releasing that video later this week. But next week, we're also going to be tackling 2 albums as well. We're going to be tackling the Gilmore-less Pink Floyd album, The Final Cut. And later in that week, we will also be doing one for Was This Album Really That Good? And we're going to be covering Janis Joplin's Pearl, which I know, is a lot of people are big fans of and a lot of people aren't. So we'll see how that goes for us. But thanks again, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on our next video. Look for Guns N' Roses real soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.